Here's some numbers, according to the National Alliance on Mental Health. Approximately 1 in 5 adults in the U.S., 43.8 million or 18.5%, experiences a mental health illness in a given year. Approximately 1 in 25 adults in the U.S., 9.8 million or 4%, experience a serious mental illness in a given year that substantially interferes or limits their ability to do one or more major life activity. Approximately 1 in 5 youths, aged 13 to 18, that's 21.4%, experiences a severe mental disorder at some point during their life. For children aged 8 to 15, the estimate is 13%. 2.6% of adults in the U.S. live with bipolar disorder. 6.9% of adults in the U.S. have at least one major depressive episode every year. 18.1% of adults in the U.S. experience an anxiety disorder, like post-traumatic stress or obsessive-compulsive. Among the 20.2 million adults in the U.S. who experience a substance abuse problem, 50%, that's 10.2 million, have a co-occurring mental illness. Serious mental illness costs America $193.2 billion in lost earnings per year. Mood disorders, including major depression, dissociative disorder, and bipolar disorder, are the third most common causes of hospitalization in the U.S. for both youth and adults aged 18 to 44. Individuals living with serious mental illness face an increased risk of having chronic medical conditions. Adults in the U.S. living with a serious mental illness die an average 25 years earlier than everyone else. Over one-third, 37% of students with a mental health condition, ages 14 to 21 and older, who are served by special educations, drop out. It's the highest dropout rate of any disability group. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. It is the third leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 14, and the second leading cause of death for people ages 15 to 24. More than 90% of children who die by suicide have a mental health condition, and each day, an estimated 18 to 22 veterans die by their own hands each year. Now I'm going to give you some numbers provided by myself. 100% of those who suffer silently with mental health illnesses are suffering needlessly. 0% of those who suffer from mental health illnesses are alone. And 100% of the warriors you are about to hear speak on this show have struggled with mental health illness and are both still productive and successful men.
Can you keep a secret?
Changing hearts and minds.
Changing hearts and minds. Welcome to Change Your POV podcast. You're listening to Changing Hearts and Minds, a show about reviving the warrior spirit and remembering the past to improve our future. I'm your host, Jeff Adamick, and let's get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I totally screwed or what? You're funny.
I want to discuss all this behavior.
Let me out of here!
There are two things that warriors rely upon and keep as a priority to be able to perform their chosen task, and to be able to be counted upon to be the cornerstone of their abilities. One of them is their physical condition. We spend hours training, physically leaving sweat, blood, and tears as our payment for the strength and functional abilities we have to be able to endure the rigors of the tasks we choose to make our passions. The other thing we as warriors make our foundation is our minds, and keeping our senses sharp and our awareness and knowledge of our jobs as sharp as razors is just as important to being able to do our jobs, and even more of the two of these are just as critical to living a full and productive life that one can be proud of. What do we do when our foundations, our pillars, are not healthy enough to hold us up? With physical conditioning, we can quickly feel and obviously identify the lack of strength and flexibility when it becomes an issue. We either adjust our training, or we seek the medical health care necessary to heal or identify physical medical conditions that are preventing us from living our lives in the balance that we need it to be. When it comes to our minds, it's never that simple. Many times, as with myself, we have no warning that things are not well, and the senses we spent our lives trusting beyond anything begin to betray us and to drive our abilities into the dirt. We are no longer the people we wish to be. This, combined with the cultural stereotypes and attitudes toward mental health and illness, makes us ashamed to speak or unable to identify our own needs for assistance. It's not only among civilians but also the military that undiagnosed mental health illnesses can be a struggle and a source of pain that few but those who suffer with it can understand. When a perfect storm of undiagnosed or untreated illnesses of the brain and stress or other health conditions come to a crossroads, even the seemingly strongest of us all have our own foundations crumble, and the pain and weight of the burden can be too much to carry. Today we welcome someone who I personally have known from all the way back in my childhood. I'm honored to have and welcome a man who I'm considered a warrior just as much as any military person, and especially with his courageous and inspirational work he is doing to help bring awareness to health issues, and he touches many people in our modern culture. Author of the book Under My Helmet, founder and director of the Fourth and Forever Foundation, NFL linebacker, and member of the 2007 Indianapolis Colts Super Bowl winning championship team, Changin Hearts and Minds welcomes Keith O'Neill. Hey Keith, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Jeff, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh no, thank you for coming on the show. Keith, for those of the people out there who for some reason don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little bit of background of where you come from, brother, and who you are?
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised that many people don't know me. I was just a little special teams player in the league for 4 years. But a little bit about me, I grew up in Howell, New Jersey with Jeff. I spent my elementary school there and moved on to Buffalo, New York, and went to high school there. I moved on to Northern Arizona University on a full athletic scholarship. Fortunately, was able to play there in beautiful Arizona. And after my college days and playing years, I was picked up by the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent. I made the team, spent some time in Dallas, playing under Coach Parcells, which was extremely difficult. Was cut there after 2 seasons. Picked up off waivers by the Indianapolis Colts. Fortunately, we had some great players on the team like Peyton Manning and Bob Sanders and Dwight Freeney and Marvin Harrison, names that everybody knows. And we were able to win Super Bowl 41. And over this time, through my youth and through my NFL playing days, I suffered with an undiagnosed mental illness, bipolar disorder. And it really had an effect on me, obviously mentally, but physically as well. And I wasn't diagnosed until my playing days were over when I was 30 years old. So that's me in a nutshell. There's a lot more to the story, and we'll probably get into it a little bit.
Yeah, and just so you guys out there understand, before you start Googling up there, yes, me and Keith both grew up in Howell together, but I actually am in the same grade, or was in the same grade as his brother. So, I knew who Keith was, but me and Keith weren't like, you're not going to find pictures of me and Keith hanging out together in grammar school out there. So don't go looking for it. And I don't want people getting confused and thinking that's the case. I was actually more familiar with his brother specifically, but I did know him and his sister. So going forward though, Keith, I want to be honest with you, man. I think because I had my own struggles with mental health problems, I'm not shocked by what went on, but I am very, very impressed. Struggling with what you struggled with and then achieving what you achieved is, to me, that's just massively, like, I just can't put it together. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like? Because you were undiagnosed at the time, but how tough was it for you struggling with these undiagnosed issues while you were doing things like going through training camps and stuff? And I know you mentioned it in your book, and we're going to make sure that everyone knows where to find that. But the stuff in your book that talks about it is very, very, for me, it affected me a lot, reading how much you struggled and some of the stuff you went through while you were going through such a tough training program.
Yeah, I mean, it really, when I got to Northern Arizona University, the distance from being away from home for my support system definitely played a role on my mental health. I turned to alcohol and to drugs. I got into a lot of trouble. I almost got kicked off the football team, things like that. Luckily, I was able to put that aside my junior and senior year and focus on football. But it really didn't affect me much until I got into the league. And I had Bill Parcells as my coach, who is, everybody knows, Parcells is one of the most legendary, toughest, Hall of Fame coaches of all time. And I got to Dallas, and my anxiety was through the roof. I'm not just talking like scared for a speech or scared for a game or nervous for a speech or a game. I'm talking about not sleeping for 5 nights in a row. and it was agony. I've had many physical injuries in my life, but there was nothing worse than sleep deprivation. And I'm sure a lot of people have gone, 1 or 2 nights without sleep, but to go 5 nights during training camp your rookie year was unbearable. I wanted to quit. I'd call home. I'd call, my mother or my girlfriend or my sister. And because of the sleep deprivation, like all I could do was just cry.
Right.
I know.
Yeah.
Here I am, a 23-year-old ass-kicking linebacker in the league, calling the women in my life saying I want to quit because I didn't know what was going on. I would have done anything for just 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
When that initially is what what stood out to me. My first training camp was, I don't know if it was just the pressure of trying to make the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent out of Northern Arizona, or if it was just my mental illness coming out, during the most important time of my life. These feelings, they didn't end in Dallas. I mean, once I made the team, I don't know, I really don't know how I made it. I mean, I was one of those guys that 110% every play,
Right.
Growing up, my brother growing up and my father, they're both successful football players. I wanted to prove to everybody that I was too. So I never took a play off. I was one of those guys that just did what was told. I was a grunt. I was a special teams player.
Yeah. No, and how do you think that we still have to talk. We have to talk about this in retrospective, looking back on it, knowing now what was going on with you. But at the time, how did that affect your way you looked at yourself? Having to struggle with those things, not knowing what it was. I can imagine it. The same thing as it is with a military person who has PTSD, undiagnosed, doesn't understand what's actually going on with them. So how did it affect you as the way your self-image and the way you felt about who you were as a person?
There was a wide range of emotions and feelings about how I felt about myself. I didn't understand why this was happening to me. My roommate slept every night like a baby. I was like thinking to myself, how can this guy be sleeping right now? He's in the same position I'm in, undrafted, rookie free agent, trying to make the Cowboys. How is he sleeping? I felt weak. I wanted to ask for help, but didn't know how. I mean, if I had a torn Achilles or a broken collarbone, I'd go into the trainers and tell them. But when you're talking about mental illness or something going on with your mind, you can't. There's no x-ray, there's no MRI that can say, okay, look, you have bipolar disorder or you have anxiety, because in the league, you're praised for how hard you can hit or how hard you can take a hit, you're not, and for your mental toughness. And so to go in and say, hey, look, I'm struggling mentally, it was tough. So I looked at myself, confused, weak. I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people don't put a lot of focus on. It's that having mental health illness issues is not make you a weak person. And a lot of times, guys like us who have these things occur to us or have these episodes that are associated with our illnesses, when they say things like, well, that's a sign of mental weakness, or the cultural thought process that's some kind of a sign of mental weakness. To this day now, I tell people all the time, you have no idea how false that statement is. Because it is by far the worst friggin' feeling and the worst condition that you could actually put yourself in while not being physically falling apart. Like, you'll cut somebody's arms off and they're going to go through a struggle to deal with the fact that their arms are cut off, but everyone can see it and everyone can empathize with it. But what people can't empathize with is having levels of anxiety that are so high that you can't sleep. Having levels of anxiety that are so up there that you have to do everything possible to be able to just make it through a day and not have everybody else around you notice. And we do a poor job of making sure that people, or the society has done a poor job of making sure people understand that. And so I'm with you, man. It was stuff that I felt like I felt like I was a coward. I felt like there were things that were going on with me that I was like, how can I not have any issues with any of the things I've seen or done, but how can I be feeling this way? How can I be not sleeping at night, having anxiety, and the anxiety that wasn't associated with what I'd expect anxiety to be associated with. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't have these issues that I think. I'm not afraid of getting up and going to work. I'm afraid of just going to sleep, or just like things you just have no. There's no way to connect, like, why am I so anxious about this when I should be anxious about that? And so it makes it really hard.
I was a wedge buster, in the NFL for 5 years, and that didn't scare me at all.
No, it's,
You know,
it's
like,
illegal now in the NFL, isn't it? Like they even got
no,
rid of it
yeah,
because of how dangerous it was.
yeah, there's no more wedges anymore because of guys like me. But I wasn't afraid to do that. I wasn't afraid to go skydiving or jump off cliffs like you said, I was afraid to go to sleep at night, and it's been like that my whole life.
Yeah,
and I think to your point, I think people who struggle with mental health issues are tougher than those who don't, because we are battling with something in our brain and the way we think and our thoughts every single day. And it makes me a tougher person because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with you. Did your high drive and motivation to be successful make it hard to seek healthcare? And what I mean by that is, I know you talked about how you wanted to get help. You wanted to go to get something to help you out with. Like you said, you can't walk into the trainer's office and ask for it. And I know that inside in your book, you talked twice. You went to both of your coaches at separate times and reached out to them in the best way I think you knew how at the time. Was it hard for you to try to get yourself to either realize that you needed to go get help from some kind of a mental health professional, or was it just something that you just didn't? I wasn't even going to think about it because it's just not an option.
Initially, early on in my career in the league, I struggled with trying to get help because I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't proven myself in the NFL yet. I was fresh. I was young. I was wild and reckless, and I didn't understand what was going on. And that's when, like you said in my book, I approached Coach Parcells, and the only thing I could think of doing was trying to quit and let me just reiterate, I've never been a quitter, but
right.
When you're sleep deprived, thinking about suicide, there's only one option, and that was it for me. Luckily, Coach Parcells wouldn't let me quit. But when I was with the Colts, it was a completely different organization, mindset. Everyone that knows Coach Dungy understands what type of person he is. And I felt comfortable going to him with my issues, with my anxiety and my insomnia and whatnot. But he helped, and they helped me extremely and got me on the right path. And that was my first step to wellness, was asking for help. And I think it takes a man to do something like that, to walk into your boss, whether it's in the NFL or corporate America or it's in school, to walk into your teachers and say, hey, look, I'm struggling with mental health issues. I need help. It should be no different than a physical issue.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because that's something that I try to drive home with this show specifically, especially to a lot of the military guys out there that are listening, that it shows a lot more strength and a lot more courage to go out and say that I need help for a mental health issue than it does to just keep your mouth closed about it and struggle on. And I say that because every single person, here's the thing, guys, and there was one of the reasons why I really wanted Keith to come on, is I don't think a lot of people realize the similarities between an NFL player and somebody who is working in the special operations community. And maybe not every single branch of the military, but special operations as a whole. Everything that they need is set before them, whether it's like the best medical care, the best trainers, the best facilities and everything like that. We have the same thing, and a lot of you guys out there who are listening who have been in Special Forces Group, been in Ranger Battalion just like I have, you guys know what I'm talking about. You've got these world-class orthopedic rehab specialists who come in there to help us get over these sports injuries. A lot of those guys are guys who used to work in NFL teams, and they're there for us to utilize, to help. And the second that you wake up in the morning and you've got shin splints, or you've got turf toe, which, believe it or not, even military guys will get that stuff. When you have those kind of issues, they have an entire system set up for you to go get the help you need right away. And nobody has a problem waking up, showing up to work in the morning and going straight to the trainer, straight to the medical facilities and saying, hey, look, hey, bud, I got shin splints. I'm getting ready to deploy. Or just like an NFL player, hey, I got shin splints. I got a game coming up this Sunday. I need some help to get this dealt with and mitigated so that I can do my job. And then on the other side of that, there is nobody out there that walks up into them and says, hey, look, man, I haven't slept in a couple days. I'm having a little bit of problem, with the anxiety attacks. For me specifically, I'd wake up, I'd get to sleep. I had the opposite of what you had. I'd get to sleep, no problem. Within an hour of falling asleep, I'd wake up with an anxiety attack that refused to let me go back to sleep. And because I woke up with the anxiety attack, I had no idea what was triggering it. But I was just like, where I'm going with this, I would not walk into work and be like, hey man, I'm having anxiety attacks in the middle of the night. I'm having, because of the other phrase that is used for those things. It's a panic attack. Well, what the hell are you panicking for? And it's not, all right, let's take a look at what's going on with you. It's almost like a shaming of you when they repeat back to you what it is you're trying to say to them. So I appreciate you saying that, because what I want to get to most people doing, we both have our tasks that we're trying to get done. My big thing is to get people to be okay to ask for help, because I think that if we get everyone okay to ask for help, they are able to move on, and it's not a big deal. It's not as big of a deal as we make it out to be, because it's something that more people struggle with than they want to admit. I don't want to go into everything that's in the book, because I want people to buy the book. So, and I'm sure you think the same thing. It'd be better. So, but here's something I wanted to talk about, because it kind of fits where I want to go with this. I found that many people like us just seeking the medical or mental health care was not turning the condition off. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking, all right, well, I'm willing to ask for help, so now I should be good right off the bat. After reading your book, and my own personal experience was, at first it didn't make things better, and it kind of changed things a little bit, because it almost made them worse and brought up stuff that I didn't have. I didn't have, and I was much like you, I didn't have depression that was out in the open. But once I started getting help, the depression hit, and it hit really, really hard. Do you find that the struggle became worse or changed even while getting the care you needed at first? And how are you able to move through that to get to a better place?
When I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it's called bipolar 1 disorder. It's the most extreme case. I had psychotic features. But once I got diagnosed, I fell into a depression for 18 months. And that was largely due because of the illness. When I got diagnosed, I went through a very manic episode. I thought I was Jesus Christ at one point, and I fell down into a depression for 18 months while I was trying to get help. And this is when all the medication came in. And I felt like a medication guinea pig at first. They were just throwing drugs at me. Try this, try that, try this, and that played a huge role on my trying to get well again. And it was frustrating and scary. And the side effects of the drugs were almost as bad as the illness itself, I feel like. So to answer your question, seeking help, and I don't want this to deter anybody from seeking help, but the initial stages might be a little, we might be swimming in uncharted waters.
Right.
You might not know what's going on. Doctors might not know what's going on. But yeah, I fell into a depression for about 18 months. Some serious events took place during those 18 months. But then finally, after finding the right meds, getting on the right combination, talk therapy, exercising again, finding purpose through other channels other than playing in the NFL, I was able to find, what I'd like to say is wellness.
And then I tell a lot of guys, and that's why I want to bring it up, is that it just doesn't turn off just because you ask for help. But you also have to be able to realize that no matter how bad it gets as you're going through the treatment and the therapy, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And swear to God, guys, that light is not a train. It's not a train coming right at you. But if you just keep driving forward through your therapy and through your medical help and really have faith in the fact that you're going to get better and have the decision and make the drive to get better, you're going to get better. And it may get a little bit worse here and there, but everyone that knows it, when you start going to the gym or something after not being in the gym for a while, you might feel great a couple hours after that first workout, but the next morning you're going to feel so damn sore that it's going to take everything in the world to get you to go back. If you apply that same kind of thought process to mental health treatment, the same kind of thing's going to happen. You're going to start uncovering things that are triggers and maybe some sources of why you're feeling certain ways, and that may make things feel a little bit worse at first, but that's just the process of healing, and you just have to be able to get through it. And hopefully you don't have episodic things that lead you to have real struggles, such as like Keith had or some other people that I know have had. Even myself do a little bit. I didn't have it as bad. For me, everything when you talk about the psychotic episode or the manic episode that you had, I had the same thing. It came to a head where I had some really, really, for lack of a better term, dark and insane shit going on in my own head that took me out of being normal. I mean, just it was so bad that, much like you said in your book, I couldn't even go out and pretend that there wasn't something wrong with me anymore. It gotten so bad, and thank God I had and this is the next where we're going. I'm transitioning to the next thing. Thank God I had a wife who was able to really be a person who held it together for me, and So this next question is, a lot of the guys that are listening to it, a lot of my veteran listeners are going to be like, yeah. But here's where I want you to have your wives sit down and listen to my show for the first time ever, because I want to talk about how important it is for the wives and for the family members to be a good support system for people who are having mental health issues. Very few people do I find that have the same kind of support system that I had, but you're one of them, Keith. I mean, you talk about in your book at length, what your wife had endured and what your family had endured, and I had the same thing, and I can't give them enough credit and feel bad about what they went through. But how important was it for you to have a support system and have a wife that was obviously doing God's work, if you really want to say it, by putting up with all this stuff. So how important was that to your recovery?
I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for my wife and family. I don't know if I'd even be here today, to be honest with you. I put her through a lot with this illness, and she's been my backbone. She's my soulmate. We're meant to be together. She's held my hand when I've had psychotic episodes, through the darkest depressions. She's been there, and no, she hasn't known what to do all the time. I mean, who does? Doctors don't even sometimes know what to do at all times. She's a registered nurse, so she's caring and a care provider in nature. So she's been there for me through everything. And like I said, I dumped a ton on her that it actually, she actually had to seek help too about me. She went out on her own. She went to NAMI meetings, which is National Alliance on Mental Illness. She, spoke to people at church, on how to deal with this kind of stuff. And, she was worried that it would last forever, or that maybe our children, because bipolar is a genetic illness, and what happens if one of our children has bipolar disorder? And then I move on to my family, who Jeff knows, and my brother Kevin and Colleen and my parents, and it was extremely difficult on them. Kevin, who's a very type A personality, very tough guy, very alpha male. He didn't really know how to act with his kid brother being sick with a mental illness,
right?
And he was there for me. He was there for me, cracking jokes, being the same Kevin that he's always been, but he didn't know how to act. Colleen was there for me. My parents were extremely supportive, and it's crucial to have support, not only for the person who's sick, but if you know somebody who has a mental illness, to be there for them. Now, you're not going to know what to say, because there's still stigma surrounding mental illness, or you don't learn about mental illness and how to, act with people with mental illness. But it's very important to be around and to be supportive, because they're going through a tough time, and most times they feel isolated.
Yeah, there was bouncing off that idea. There's something you say in the book that, and I think it was somebody else that told you that, is if you had come out with that you had cancer, you would have had 1 million emails and 1 million reaching out to you to tell, ask you if you were okay, but when you came out with being bipolar, it was like crickets.
Exactly.
And it's not something, we're not saying that culture is bad. We understand, because even us as people who are suffering with mental health problems, we don't know what to say and what to do half the time. So we understand that people may not know what to say and what to do. But the difference is don't treat it like it's something different, because it's the same thing. If I have diabetes, I get taken care of, and everyone asks me every day, "Hey man, how's your blood pressure doing? How's your blood sugars doing?" But nobody asks you, "Hey man, how you feeling this morning? You feeling all right? You doing okay?" And the thing is, you guys can't see it at home, but over the last couple of weeks, I think I've spoken to you 2-3 times, and every single time we speak to each other, we ask each other the same question: "How you feeling? How you doing?" And we know what each other's talking about, but we need to get more people to do that with guys like us, because it does make a world of difference to have somebody actually reach out and treat you like there's nothing any different with you than anyone else, except for your medical condition, because that's really all it is a medical condition. It's the same as if I had diabetes and I have to get my insulin every day. I've got to wake up every morning and get a hold on my mental state, because I have a mental health condition, and it's not a big deal. You went through. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but to talk about the stigma we were just talking about. There's actually a saying that stuck out to me. I heard one time: "It's mental illness is not a casserole illness. Don't expect people to stop by with food."
That's what it was. That's what you wrote in it. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's like, if I was, sick with cancer or, some other illness, and I'm not trying to take anything away from cancer, that's a serious illness, but like,
right.
People would stop by with food. People would stop by with cars. People would be running marathons for me.
Right.
But I don't have that. I have bipolar. You don't see anybody running marathons for people who have mental health conditions.
No.
And that culture needs to change. And I think it is. I think it slowly is. I can see a little change.
Yeah, it's definitely. And I think as much as it sucks to say it, but in both of the cultures that we came from, your NFL and me with the special operations, they didn't want to deal with this stuff up front. And it's nothing against those different organizations. They're culturally they're an expanded microcosm of us as a American society. But that's where I think we need to start is those places where people look up to people like us. That's why it's important for people like us to talk about this stuff, because I think it makes it safe for them makes it okay for them to talk about these things, which is why Fourth and Forever is such a good foundation. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Fourth and Forever Foundation?
Sure. It's a not-for-profit foundation, founded it in, I believe, 2013. I initially started because I wanted to give back to the University at Buffalo, Department of Psychiatry, that really, really helped me during my darkest times of my life. Actually, the doctor there, I don't know his title because it's so long, but he's a genius. He's a genius. He's right in my backyard, and he's world-known doctor in bipolar disorder, and he helped me get on the right medication, helped me get my life back together. So I wanted to give back. So through the foundation, I've been raising funds to fund research at the University at Buffalo, like I said, but we also raise awareness for mental health conditions. I go around the entire country, and I speak about my story and the importance of, like we said, asking for help and trying to destigmatize these illnesses. And I mostly speak to high school students. I consider myself an international speaker now because I spoke in Canada a couple months ago.
Nice.
So
I'm worldwide now.
I'm worldwide, man. Prestige. But no, it's a great foundation. I run it with, I have a great board. I have a great advisory committee. Two of my successful best friends from high school that I've known my whole life are very passionate and help me run it. And I have a great advisory committee, and we're doing good things with it.
And what is the in a perfect world, Keith? What is it in a year from now? What will you think that in a perfect world you'll be able to say this is a successful year? We've done what?
To continue doing what we're doing. I think it's successful right now. I just want to reach more kids, and I am. So far, 2018, I have more speaking engagements set up than I have in the past, and that's what I want to continue to do. I think they say by age 14 is when most children develop mental health issues. So if I can reach them and their parents, especially, and talk to them about getting help, recognizing these symptoms, that myself, the foundation, can help. So, and there's still a lot of studies that needs to be done with bipolar disorder and other mental illnesses. It's tough. We're talking about the brain, most complex in the whole body. So
yeah, it's the quantum supercomputer that nobody can break. There's things going on up in that thing that people don't understand. And I agree with you, man. I think if we get the culture focused on a new way of dealing with this stuff early on, make it okay to talk about it. Because if you don't understand how hard it can be, pick up a copy of Under My Helmet and read about Keith. And I'll tell you what, it's the truth, because like I said at the beginning, I would have never known that you struggled through these things. And how many people out there have the same thing going on, or who don't have which I know this is going to sound a little weird, but don't have the advantage of having a episode which brings light to it. So like if you had never had the moment where it became too much, would you have just silently suffered with this for the rest of your life? And yeah, you wouldn't have had a manic episode. You and I both would have had manic episodes that made us have to deal with it. But also, it sucks. It sucks dealing with it when no one knows about it. And it really does. It's a lot of pain and a lot of just uncomfort and smiling when you're not happy and not smiling when you are happy because you don't know how to react to different things. Suffering in silence is a waste of time, and thank God that it happened, because you can get the help that you need now you've got to get that to other people and let them realize that living in silence your entire life and suffering alone and without telling anybody, it makes no sense, and it's just not going to be healthy for you or healthy for people and society in the future.
I agree with you. The first line in my book, I say, this is for my beautiful wife, Jill, my sons, Connor and Tanner, and to all those living with a silent illness. It's true. It's a silent illness. No one talks about it. I didn't talk about it besides with my wife and immediate family for 30 years, and I still didn't really talk about it with my family. It was just who I was. I was just grumpy. I was just irritable. I just had insomnia. I was just a little different, maybe a weak, overcome a lot. But like you said, it's a silent illness, and people shouldn't have to suffer in silence anymore. It's a shame. It's sad.
And there's far too many statistics out there of people who, eventually can't hold on to it anymore. You struggled with your own suicide attempt. I struggled with sitting around, my house in the middle of the night when I wasn't sleeping, rolling a 9mm round around in my hand, wondering, what point of the night am I going to get to the point where I'm going to use this because I can't do this anymore. So the thing is it's one of those things, guys, that you can't. We talk about suicide awareness. You can't take it back, and thank God that guys like me and Keith didn't. We had the opportunity to get a second chance when we had those things, but there's a lot of people out there that need help who aren't going to get it, and then maybe don't get that second chance when they have that moment that they just can't deal with the pain anymore and go forward. So I think what you're doing, Keith, is fantastic. What I want to do now is talk about where people can find all your book and where people can go to support you and follow you on social media and stuff like that.
Absolutely. My book's pretty easy to find. Amazon. I think it's $16.32 right now for a hardcover. So you can just go on Amazon, type in Under My Helmet. I'm honored to say that Tony Dungy did my foreword. It means a lot to me that he took the time out of his busy schedule and life to support me. My foundation, Fourth and Forever with a 4, the number 4. You can just go to fourthandforever.org and read about my foundation and what we're doing, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. And, we're just trying to make things work, make things better for people who suffer with mental illness.
Right. And guys, we will have the link for Under My Helmet, which guys, when the book first came out, I told everybody you guys can go back into the show notes. You'll see I've been talking about this book for months now. I still just as much think this book is important for people to read, and that book will be linked in the show notes page for the show, as will Fourth and Forever Foundation and everything else like that. And just so you guys know that if you've been following on Twitter the last couple weeks, you've seen me repost a lot of stuff that Keith's been putting out there. You're going to continue to see that because I have already talked to Keith about it, and I'm dedicating to helping him do everything that he's doing right now because it's important. If you're out there right now as a veteran and you're wondering, how does this apply? I'll tell you how it applies. First of all, we both know, and not me and Keith, but me and the listener at home who is a veteran, insert veteran name here. We both know that most of us, including myself, who have PTSD and all that stuff, they've found that this isn't where it started. Many of us had, mental health issues going back that were undiagnosed. And a lot of veterans have mental health issues that are undiagnosed, and then PTSD exacerbates it. So we have our own problems in the veteran community as far as dealing with mental health issues. It's going to be my mission to make sure that we work with Keith, because it's a double-edged sword. And if we can get more people to listen between both of our efforts, it's going to reach out to twice as many people. And just because Keith is talking to people with bipolar, the same things he's talking about apply to us as veterans as it does to the people out there. And you veterans who have children out there, this is the kind of stuff that you need to be able to be aware of, because your own kids may be suffering silently, and they've got parents who are alpha males, high drive people who do the same thing, they're growing up in the same kind of environment that Keith grew up in, a house full of high achievers, people who are like, everybody wants to be, Kevin or Keith's father. Me and him both know that his book does not exaggerate. Kevin was the man in high school. Everyone wanted to be Kevin, and so there was a lot of stuff that people have to live up to. That's not the fault of the people that they're looking up to, but it's self-imposed. I've got to be this, and so I keep quiet. It's just really what you're doing, Keith, is just phenomenal, man. And I applaud you, and I'm so glad to be a part of helping you out. I'm glad you're doing okay, and I'm glad you're able to get out there and talk about the things you're talking about.
I want to thank you for having me on the show, and more importantly, I want to thank you for what you do for our country and our military does for our country. What I did was peanuts compared to what you were doing for us, and words can't express my gratitude and how much I look up to you guys. I'm getting a little choked up here, man, talking about it, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, buddy. No, it's we appreciate it, and like I tell everyone else, don't ever stop thanking people. No matter when you see the veterans who give you that look like they don't want you to thank them, they're lying. Yeah. They're lying. It means so much. It means so much to veterans to have somebody thank them. It really does, and we don't know how to react to it many times when people ask us when they thank us, because we're just like, oh yeah, we don't understand the magnitude of the stuff that people feel for us. And, I tell veterans all the time, don't ever tell someone not to thank you, or don't ever dismiss a thank you, because that is their way of expressing appreciation to the fact that, yeah, we did go off, and although not many people do enjoy it like I did, I feel to it all the time, hey, don't need to thank me, man. I'd do it all again. I enjoyed every single minute of killing terrorists. But you can't say that stuff nowadays. But I get on with Keith. I can say stuff like that because we understand each other.
No, that's awesome, man. I thank you again. And like you said, together with our platforms, football gave me a platform, but not a purpose. I found my purpose. It took me a while after I played in the league to figure out my purpose, but I found it now. And I put on Twitter the other day, the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find your purpose. And I think that's true. And I think the both of us, post, military and post NFL, I think we both found our purpose in life, and I think we're doing great things, and hopefully, we can change our culture.
No, we're gonna change our culture. I believe that 100%. So, all right, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us here at Changing Hearts and Minds and listening in. Now, I know that you guys are probably wondering, why has this been the first Changing Hearts and Minds episode that Jeff has released in probably 2 months? Well, it's not. I've been releasing the Lessons in Leadership Band of Brother episodes that have been getting released on Wednesdays. This episode will be released in the same week. It'll be a Friday release, so next Friday, which when you're listening to it out there, you're like, it's not next Friday. It's right now, this Friday. Yeah, no shit. So it's going to be released next week for us, and it'll be definitely promoted out there on social media and pushed out there. And go out there, find Under My Helmet on Amazon, find the links in the show notes page. Go to fourthandforever.org and see what Keith has been doing, where he's speaking. See if you want to get involved. Find the ways you can get involved through that website. You can send me a message directly, and if you want to send me a message to try to get you some kind of autograph, I'm going to tell you to go take a long walk off a short pier. I'm not out here to get you guys Keith's autograph. I'm here to get you guys to realize that we need to change our culture. So you guys have a good time. We'll see you guys next week on the next episode of Changing Hearts and Minds.
Change your POV and all of its shows can help and heal and even educate. We want you to help us help others. Visit our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/changeyourpov. Become a patron of our network and our mission.